So I wanted to make a video today about Qubes OS, installing applications, general usage, other things about it. Now, most other YouTube videos that you see on Qubes OS are literally 20 minutes to an hour long on how to get things working. And I was like, oh, usually I can condense this down into a nice 15-minute informational video to where you can get applications installed or just basic usage. And that's kind of what I want to do with Qubes. And I started out part one in the prior video, and then part two is going to be this video, but this part two really got derailed, and I spent a ton of time doing all kinds of shenanigans. So let's go over what all I did and what didn't work.
This video is brought to you by Pluralsight. I've used them to learn Citrix XenApp, Windows Server, and Linux administration. Click the link in the description and learn your skill today.
So here we go. First off, I wanted to try Windows because having Windows also integrated into Qubes would be pretty awesome. That way you could kind of have a secure version of Windows and run those Windows apps and then run your Linux apps, and the world would be beautiful. It would be sunshine and rainbows and unicorns and all that greatness. But that didn't happen. I'm going to tell you what all I did. I spent a lot of time, as I already said, and I did Windows 10, Windows 7, and I did seamless mode, non-seamless mode, and all this other stuff. So first off, Windows 10, I got it going. However, there is no seamless mode with Windows 10 because it uses something called QWT, or Qubes Windows Tools, and this isn't incompatible with Windows 10, so don't try it. I thought I'd be the first person to get it working, and I just wasted a bunch of time. So don't do that. You can get Windows 10 working. However, it's like a traditional VM. You just got the window there. You can launch your applications, do basic stuff, and just make sure you install Zen's PV drivers, and you'll be okay. But it's very minimal, just your regular VM experience. Nothing big here. And you can't really do like applications in the menu or any kind of integration with Qubes. So I kind of found this lacking as far as settings go. Second up was Windows 7, which does have seamless mode, and I was really excited about getting this working. So I spent most of my time trying to get this working properly. However, I had some missteps here. I went ahead and made this huge shot, probably about an hour's worth of recording for this section. And at the end of the day, I just wasn't impressed with it. A lot of my applications weren't loading properly. I think this had to deal more with the testing release of Qubes. I really regret doing the testing release of Qubes. However, the stable version just simply doesn't work on my hardware because it uses a really old Linux kernel, and I have a lot of new hardware that I'm testing this on, which simply didn't exist when that kernel was out. So that's where I'm at. I can't really use Qubes on this computer because of this. And I'll go ahead and show some clips of when I went through here. It was a long time, but it was very interesting. If you're going to use Qubes and you have a 2-year-old about machine and it's extremely beefy, has tons of memory, you could probably do this. There's a GitHub project, the QVM Create Windows Cube, which sounds awesome. So I wanted to try that out. So I went ahead and tried to do that one. And while I was able to get it working and get the script and everything running, the script itself just didn't work on this version of Qubes. It could be that I'm running the testing branch instead of the official, and that's why it didn't work. So we're going to do it manually. Go through the setup process here. And I think I have a license for 7 Professional. Typically, you always want it on disk 0. These other disks, I think, are exclusive for like your user and other things that'll be used here in a bit. And it's saying this needs at least 42 gigs of free space. Wow. I must have a hell of a lot on this install. So let's go ahead and pop open this disk to 50 gigs then. And I'll go ahead and close this out. All right, and here we go. We got enough space now. It is installing Windows 7 on here. Once this is finished, it should be able to, we'll still need to do some other tweaks, such as removing the specified video card in here, because right now we kind of tricked it to do just the install. And then afterwards, we're going to do what's called Qubes Windows Tools. It gives us this seamless mode so we can launch Windows applications in Qubes without having Windows everywhere. So, all right, it's going to reboot one more time. So anytime it reboots and the window goes away, you'll see here the state goes away in the manager. So we just manually start it back up by hitting start and resume. You know, it's been a while since I've done a Windows 7 install, and I gotta say, I really kind of miss it. It's so funny how bad Microsoft's install has gotten to where I miss an installer from 10 years ago. So I should have probably quadrupled all the requirements on the actual Windows VM page. I doubled everything pretty much on the page. Just because it's a pretty beefy computer I have back here, and I shouldn't have any issues with just having doubled values. But looking at this, I have 18 threads. I probably should have thrown 8 virtual CPUs at this instead of just 4, because this is taking a while. I mean, we're at a little over 30 minutes now on Windows 7 install. And, you know, I know Windows 7, especially this old one where I have a lot of baked-in updates, it does take a long time to install, but this is probably a little excessive, and I probably should have put a little more resources into it, so we might fix that after it finishes. So we'll hit finish there, and now we can hit restart. All right, everything's halted. I'm going to go ahead and start up the cube one more time and see what we get. It's very interesting that we're getting to the end of this. I just want to see this work seamlessly now. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's glorious. I love it. Oh, very, very nice. All right, well, there's that. Now, what happens if we close this out? All right, shows that it did a... Now, with those clips out of the way, as you saw, I got kind of frustrated towards the end. Windows 7, I literally spent a ton of time doing QWT. It was a really interesting integration. However, I don't blame Qubes so much for this, as I think seamless integration using a full VM of Windows isn't the future anywhere. I don't believe in it. I think it's never going to have this perfect, clean application. You can do PCI pass-through and basically run. That's almost, to me, almost like dual booting, which is a decent solution. However, it's clunky. As far as having this seamless integration where you launch Windows apps alongside your Windows apps or your Linux apps and Windows apps, like living in the same environment without having a desktop, forget about it. I think that's pie in the sky, because when you get this working like this, a Windows update's going to come around and mess things up. You're going to have just a whole variety of things that could happen to it. So I remember Parallels from the Mac OS days having a really good seamless experience, but I really don't think this is ever going to happen so much in Windows 10. There's a lot of things that go into these updates that really mess the seamless environment up. And I know VMware's done a really good job on seamless too. I would say between all these seamless experiences, Qubes gave me the worst experience. So, and rightfully so. Like I said, it's a very small team of Qubes people. I think maybe a couple guys are working on this project where, you know, like Parallels and VMware, hell, they have entire departments dedicated to doing a seamless experience. So I'm sure that's why those are just a better look and feel. But long story short, if you're gonna want to do Windows 7 and have seamless experience with the apps, I'd probably recommend installing updates up to like 2018 for Windows 7, disabling updates, doing QWT to integrate with, and then there you go. So I did try various different methods of QWT. I tried to do the actual GitHub project, which I think it was Crazy Cuber was the GitHub, and I did a full download ISO and ran those scripts as dictated through his README. That did not work. It failed out on my testing environment. I'm sure on stable it would work. And then I also did my own ISO where I built it out completely, did the updates, installs. Both were a little bit frustrating because each time I tried it, it was about an hour, hour and a half to 2 hours after incorporating updates and things for each install, because Windows 7 is a very bloated install, 40 to 50 gigs, and I just kind of want to mention that here. Past that, I tried to do a Linux install using my testing environment of Qubes, and I gotta say that was also a pretty bad experience. I was able to get Steam up and going, do 32-bit dependencies, get a proper games cube for Linux going. However, when I went to pass through like my Steam controller, I had a lot of issues actually pushing that specific USB device to it, as it didn't pop up in my upper right menu in a lot of the device pass-throughs where you can actually assign your devices to a certain VM. This was also not working all that well on top of that. Now, I could probably tinker around with this and get that working, but at this point I was probably 5 hours in, and I was like, this is just ridiculous, and I'm not going to use this as a daily driver. And I decided to call it and throw it in the towel. So this was my Qubes experience. It was a complete failure. I think you can get Qubes running well depending on your hardware requirements, using more of a stable release where QWT would work, and you could do that Windows integration properly. However, this is not recommended for pretty much anybody. I would never recommend Qubes based on my experiences, but I'm sure there's a niche out there, a very, very small niche, where it would suffice and it would be fine, but you really would have to be picky with your hardware. You'd really have to be picky with the actual knowledge of the user using it. And at the end of the day, it's just not worth it for me, and it's probably not worth it for you. And that is my Qubes overview. And I wanted to show applications on my Linux install, but I was also having problems with that. When I would go into Qubes Manager, refresh the applications list, it wouldn't show any of my applications I installed. I had to directly launch these applications using Terminal, which I don't find a suitable solution. I could also run directly using run command. And again, this isn't suitable. You can hack around and do a lot of things in Qubes, but unless you're an extreme advanced user, I would never recommend this, as you're going to run into a lot of problems, as I did. But with all that, let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. As always, thank you to all my patrons. Without you, I couldn't make videos like this one. And I'll see you in the next one.